Support Smacking Off by commenting on, liking, and sharing our videos. Stay right where you are, more Smacking Off is headed your way.
I just received a marketing plan from a freelancer on Fiverr. It's great. And the way I'll present it will really take it to the next level. Check it out. Skills.
We're developing that with a freelancer, and it's excellent. It's probably my feedback that made it so good.
And you know who came up with the idea to use Fiverr? Liam. And who hired Liam? Me. Just to be clear.
You are now streaming Smacking Off the podcast. You can keep up with our current activity on Facebook at Smacking Off or Smackologists. Find us on YouTube at Smacking Off the podcast. And stay right where you are, more Smacking Off the podcast is headed your way.
Hey, this is Kyle Golick of the Smacking Off the podcast. I'm at the Basketball Hall of Fame. You don't need to come to Springfield, Massachusetts. We got our own Hall of Fame analyst in Dr. Balls.
Dr. Balls is a presentation of Smacking Off the podcast.
And now, Dr. Balls.
Janelle Holloway, the leading rusher for Oklahoma, almost 5.5 a carry, has -8 on 5 rushes. Home run ball.
And now, Smacking Off the podcast.
What's going on?
What's going on? How you doing?
Not much. Just sitting here and getting ready to do some podcasting. What you doing?
Same thing, man. I'm all in.
All right. So Ed's not going to be with us tonight. Ed is working. I'm sure you already saw that.
Yep, sad day. But he's working for a sports book, so he's certainly up on what the hell we're talking about.
Yep.
So we like that. He's great.
Sean Devine, what's going on, Sean?
Hey, Doug. Hey, Bob.
What's up, guys?
Nikki, if she's there, I can't see.
Nikki's not in yet, but
good.
I expect her momentarily. I don't expect Ed, though, unless Ed jumps in from work, which would be kind of cool.
That would be great, but I don't think that's going to happen.
If we could get him fired on the podcast.
I don't. Well, I don't want that. We love Ed.
No, I don't either, but it'd be great for the podcast. We have to put the podcast first.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on, guys?
Hell yeah.
Another just exciting day in the sports world. It's not done yet. Now, my question, Bob, are you going to be able to stay up late enough to watch your Batcats?
I'm going to try it. I had some coffee, so we'll see what happens.
Well, hopefully you don't have too early of a wake-up call tomorrow.
There you go. So, well, I don't know where Nikki said. I'm sure she'll join us. So I'm going to say this is Smacking Off the podcast. We're here with our host, Doug Phillips. And,
no, I'm not the host. You're the host.
Oh, okay.
I ain't hosting shit.
But I don't know how I got the background. So I'll do it again. We're here with our producer, Doug Phillips. And we got our key contributor, Sean Devine. Unfortunately, this week, Ed Shriver's not able to be with us. And one of our guests is going to be Nikki Mays. And I'm Dr. Ball. So welcome to Smacking Off the podcast.
And I guess we can talk some baseball here for a minute and until Nikki gets in. And Nikki may want to talk a little baseball, too, before we kick into this this incredible sweet and sour, the best of both Heisman worlds.
There you go.
That's a great way to put it, Doug. Sweet and sour. Yeah, we have to talk about the NCAA college baseball tournament that's in the super regional weekend right now. And I'll let our fine host, Bob, kick it off with his very own Kentucky Wildcats.
Well, man, I'm really pleased by them right now, and I feel they got a good opponent in Oregon State who has a lot of experience in these games at this level. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure how to feel about them because they had a couple key losses in the SEC, and I was hoping it wouldn't just evaporate and be a flash in the pan. But, man, the pitching and the fielding and has just been off the hook, and the batting's been timely. So I'm impressed by Kentucky. I think we can win it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you guys win tonight and you're punching your ticket to Omaha. Do you remember, because you've followed it a long time, when was the last time Kentucky made it out to Omaha?
Shit, man. It might have been like 1981 or 82.
Really? Been that long? Kentucky, I figured, would be there more regularly. They're a pretty
No,
solid program.
the SEC has been dominated by LSU and Auburn Florida for, decades, man. I can't remember,
The SEC had a record 11 teams make the NCAA tournament this year in baseball. And we'll throw a little asterisk, which seems like asterisks are going on everywhere in the sports world these days. But this is a positive asterisk. If Oklahoma and Texas had been in the SEC this year, you'd have 13 of 16 teams in the NCAA tournament. So,
yeah. That's right. 16. That's what it's moving to. Okay.
Yeah, 13 of 16 next year if the same amount of teams were to make it. An absolutely incredible run by the best conference in college baseball, the SEC, and it's going to continue as Florida has punched their ticket already to next weekend. Tennessee has got 4 innings left, and they are absolutely dog walking Evansville right now, 12-1. So I'm expecting them to not blow that lead and finish it out. And then Texas A&M is playing right now. They're losing, but it's not a elimination game. It's if they were to win it, they'd go. If they lose, they'll play a third game tomorrow. Georgia plays a third game tomorrow, and then the last one of the day is Bob's Kentucky Wildcats against Oregon State. And it's really going to be a mostly SEC versus ACC kind of College World Series in Omaha.
Yeah, so there's a lot of advantages to being in the South with baseball. Even styles of play throughout the Little Leagues as kids come up, because I've seen stuff in Little League as varied as coach pitch to pitching machines to you couldn't steal bases, on and on and on. Whereas there's some traditional Little League here in Kentucky in particular where it's take no prisoners baseball, like Billy Martin, where you can slide head first, on and on. There's no mercy. It's at least 6 innings. Some of it's 9. So the kind of baseball environment you come from will dictate the kind of talent you got.
Absolutely. Right? It doesn't hurt that you can play baseball just about year round.
Well, I was getting to that. So you get to Florida, which is also a big baseball culture, huge baseball culture, and they play baseball year round. They've got 3 or 4 different leagues. And they, like when I first went to Okeechobee, I had, my next step was going to be Legion ball. And it's hard to get into because they're serious about it up here. You know what I'm saying? But
absolutely.
So I get to Florida, though, and it's they got Pony League. And I'd never even heard of it, right? So I thought Babe Ruth, and it was over, right? And because I love baseball. I'm a center fielder. I'm a base stealer, leadoff hitter. And that's my style of game. And I love playing baseball in that regard. And I get to Florida, and they got Pony League. So I'm like, wow, they got Pony League. And so you play Pony League, and that gives you an alternative, and they can see whether or not you're good enough to get into Legion ball and stuff like that from there. And then Okeechobee High School was a big baseball program, and their coach was somewhat of a he was a bit of a dickhead, I have to say, right? I didn't really love the guy. But
I think you meant Richard Head, but yeah, we'll go with that.
But they did have a great program, and it had a lot of talent. And I didn't play baseball in high school for Okeechobee, but I wish I would have, because they kept you in a league constantly. They was constantly developing guys. And one thing I believe is hurting college baseball right now is that, unlike in South Florida in the 80s, so there was a lot of black people playing baseball around Okeechobee and Belglade and Pahokee and Clewiston, all the Everglades towns, all the way over to Palm Beach. Lots of black dudes were playing it, man. They were incredible athletes. And they had explosive talent, man. And I've seen a lot of that, and that's the way it was in Lexington too. But I'm looking these days on the fields, and there's nowhere as many black kids playing. And for whatever reason, I don't know if their youth leagues aren't being funded and supported well, or whatever it is. But I like to see them guys. And I want people to push me to be the best player I can, right? And that's the angle I'm coming from on that. I don't believe that there's any incipient racism or anything like that involved in it. And I'm not trying to stir no shit up like that. But what I'm saying is people's got to support youth baseball and everywhere, right? So that we can have, so we ain't.
Yeah, and I think to your point, MLB is trying to do that with the Grow the Game initiative to include everyone in the game of baseball. And really, I think it's more. I agree with you. I don't think it's a racism issue. More like it's a funding issue because in the past everybody got to play and everybody got to play for a fairly reasonable dollar amount as went through the little leagues and then the major leagues and like you mentioned either Legion Ball or Colt and Pony etc. But now in the last 20 to 25 years the rise of travel baseball which is very cost prohibitive for people that aren't of some money it has had a kind of a negative impact on communities that may or may not have as much affluence to afford. If you're living in Kentucky and you're on a travel baseball team, and this next weekend we got to be down in Florida, and you got to pay for the travel and the hotel and and you're talking when you're in those travel, that's just one trip, but there might be 20 or 25 in a season. Well, that's a lot of money. So it's good to see that Major League Baseball and a few of the other organizations are trying to invest in communities that have lower participation. It's more not so much racially, but more along just more economically of areas that don't have the money. I mean, you could talk about portions of Appalachia where you're abouts where not everybody's wealthy and can't afford to travel for travel baseball. I mean it's great for those that can, but for those that can't, you feel bad because certainly they have the talent, but if their parents can't afford it, well, versus being able to pay a mortgage or go to the grocery store, you certainly have your financial priorities. So yeah, I'm hoping more and more people and many more communities get the opportunity to play baseball.
And you're right.
We want the best talent. We don't want money to be the deciding factor in who gets to play and who doesn't get to play. We want the best players to play.
Period. And here's another factor too is so people like me would play each sport each season. So I wasn't doing traveling teams and AAU in them days was YFCA scrub league for people who wasn't good enough for high school basketball, right?
But now isn't that the opposite? Isn't AAU?
Yeah. I'm getting to that. So in those days, instead of me like now, I would have just stayed with basketball and I would have played AAU and on and on and on, right? So all year long, I would have been involved in some basketball league, right? But what happened in my day was I played in basketball season, I played basketball. In football season, I played football. In baseball season, I played baseball, right?
Yeah. And then I agree. I agree. Minus the basketball, I did wrestling, but I get. I get
right. And then in the summers, the only time I had off, and the next camp I had was football, right? So you know what I'm saying? So
now I think it's more of specialization. Whatever sport they deem you as, this is your best sport. I think the coaches kind of pull the parents aside and say, like, this is what your child should be doing. Like you should focus on this sport, and I don't know if that's necessarily the right answer because
I don't either, because like Reggie Rambert, right? He's a guy that played for West Virginia and later on in the NFL for Cincinnati and a couple other teams. And he's a guy I know and played basketball in school, and he had great hands, man. And one of the reasons he had great hands is he was always getting lobs from like me and Michael Burtz and Michael Thomas, because we were laying it out there for him because he could duck it. You know what I'm saying? And he had great hands. He'd catch it, man. And I believe that those skills go to the football field, especially juking people, right? So I'm spending a lot of time trying to set you up and figure out how to set you up, and I'm watching how your body moves. And if I can get you to take your weight one way, I can go around you on the other side. Well, that's the same thing with returning punts. So if I lean a little bit to the right and you lean with me, but I'm still under control, then I can immediately juke back to the left, and that works for both basketball and football. And then
I think it just develops a more well-rounded athlete, and truly the best athletes we've seen in the course of kind of modern sports in our country, at least, have all kind of played all the sports. You go all the way back to Jim Thorpe. He played all the sports. Jim Brown, played all the sports. Obviously, Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders, and even to a lesser, Michael Jordan. His first love was baseball, but he also played basketball. And I think LeBron played football in high school. So, I think, diversifying your athletic pursuits at a younger age, I think is a good thing. It shouldn't be, looked down as a bad thing just because you're not specializing from, the age of 6 in just one thing. I think trying anything different and letting the young athlete try it out and see if they like it. If they don't, is a good thing.
Absolutely. But I have to say though, this year I've seen some good support for the College World Series. It's ramping up. People are getting hot, man.
Well, we probably had the best game of the day today, and it's a shame that Nikki's not on yet to talk about it, but we have to talk about it. That Clemson Florida game was just absolutely incredible. 9-9 goes to extra innings. Then in the top of the 13th, Clemson gets a home run, a solo shot. They're trying to stay alive, force a game 3. And funny anecdote the guy mentioned in the broadcast was this was the first time I'm watching Texas A&M right now. I apologize. First time Florida and Clemson had played in baseball since 1983. And the first time they had played at Clemson since 1934. And that kind of shocked me, considering they're both really good baseball programs. It's a shame they haven't played a non-conference series more recently than that, We talk about this with football, with getting good non-conference matchups. But it's the same is true with baseball, And I get that they're both their teams' respective conferences are extraordinarily challenging, but I think it would do more to grow the viewership in baseball if you'd have some more really good early season non-conference matchups. But
so
what a game!
Did Nikki have a bunch of emotion tied up in this Clemson Florida game?
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, but she should be maybe she's partying because they're going to Omaha. They won. Bottom of the 13th. They get the bases loaded, and
yeah, she may be packing her suitcases.
She might be getting ready to go to Omaha right now for all we know. And because Florida walked it off with a double to left center field, and 2 runs came in, and that was all she wrote. 11-10 Florida. They're going to Omaha. I believe it's their 9th straight year going to Omaha, by the way. So this time, hopefully, they can potentially, for her, get it done in Omaha, because the last few trips to Omaha, they just haven't quite gotten it done. But it's going to be a great College World Series. It's shaping up to be incredible.
If I had to guess, I'd say Florida has probably been in 30 of the last 40 College World Series.
It seems like they're always there. You're right, Bob. I mean, Florida. I mean, this is a great program. Their head coach Sullivan does an absolutely great job. Link Jarrett, who's in his 2nd year at Florida State, has got them turned around. They're in. Virginia and North Carolina have been recent kind of regular attendees to the College World Series. So that side is good.
And Miami's a traditional power. They weren't great this year.
Oh, yeah.
No. Miami's been a little bit down over the last 3 or 4 years, but
a lot of great college baseball in the state of Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, UCF made the tournament as well. They lost last weekend. They got knocked out, as did small program from Florida. Stetson made it, and they didn't quite get past the regionals. But, there's just a ton of great baseball in the state of Florida. Our defending national champion lost last weekend in Game 3 to North Carolina. That was LSU, but LSU's got an incredible program down there in Baton Rouge. They're second most in national championships with, I believe, 7. So, but they'll be back. I mean, that's a loaded program. They can't win it every year, but they wish they can. But they'll be back for sure.
All right, so our resident Grump chimed in earlier about 10 minutes ago, Sky in the station, and he had a message for Devine. He said, "Shut the fuck up, Devine."
Well, yeah,
and
he's just upset that no one ever mentions Utah baseball, which I'm not sure they actually have a stadium for baseball and bats and gloves. But
can they grow grass there?
And to Dr. Balls, he says, "Bro talks about blacks playing baseball, but doesn't mention Jackie Robinson."
I mean, we could talk about all kinds of great black baseball players. How about Ricky Henderson?
I mean, you weren't really talking about.
He was talking about growing the game, is what he was talking about.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we could
talking
talk about
one of the greats of all time. I mean, we know there's been great black baseball players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see those kinds of guys. I want to see Jackie Robinsons. I want to see Henry Aaron. I want to see Joe Morgan. Right, those are the great players, right? Ken Griffey Sr.,
Willie Mays, Bobby Bonds,
McCovey,
Barry Bonds,
McCovey. Yeah, I mean, my God, Ernie Banks. I know those guys.
Hey, who did Willie Mays Hayes play for? Anybody?
The Mudcats.
The Cleveland Indians.
And before that, it probably was the Toledo Mud Hens, right?
Yeah.
But no, this year, in fact, they're a tribute to black baseball. In the past they've done the Field of Dreams game, but this year they're going to play at Rickwood Field down there in Birmingham, which is the oldest continuously operated baseball stadium in the United States, and it was home to the Birmingham Black Barons. But MLB is going to have a showcase game there coming up fairly soon. Tickets for that are through the roof to try to get into Rickwood. I wish I could get down there to see that game. That would be incredible because of the history there. And
So here's what I'm gonna do for Sky and the Stages. If he even wants a bitch, he's still a fan. So I'm gonna break it down to him. We're gonna have my black Hall of Fame 9 right now, right? So we're gonna
you're just right off the cuff.
Right off the cuff, right? I'm gonna have Willie Mays at center. I'm going to have Griffey at right. At left, I'm going to have Willie McCovey, right? And on first, I'm going to have, Chris Chambliss, right? Or no, Reggie Jackson.
No Frank Thomas? Come on.
I like Reggie Jackson because he's clutch.
I put Frank Thomas at first.
All right, we'll go Frank Thomas, right? We'll go Frank Thomas. At second base, I'm going to have Morgan, right? At third, at shortstop, I'm going to have Larkin, right?
Okay.
Who do you got at third?
Well, since you're putting Barry Larkin at short, I'd just move Ernie Banks over and have him play third.
I go with that, right?
Though you could have Frank Robinson there at third.
Frank Robinson would be great.
How do y'all get Reggie Jackson in here still though?
He put him at you could put him at the DH. You put Reggie at DH.
And then we'll put Frank Thomas at first. That's how we'll do it, right?
I have Roy Campanella at catcher, and then my favorite pitcher of all time, easy money, is big bad Bob Gibson, who went to Creighton University in Omaha and pitched his ass off for the St. Louis Cardinals. I'd have Bob Gibson as my starting pitcher, and then my save guy would be Ferguson Jenkins.
Oh yeah, Fergie Jenkins, that's a good one there. That'd be awesome.
And after him, I'd roll Satchel Paige out too.
We could roll Satchel Paige, and then the guys we bring in off the bench, I'd have Aaron, right? I'd have Robinson, right? Because they're both multi-tool players. You want everybody you're bringing in off the bench because you got to shake the line up. You might have to need a right hander or a left hander. You want multi-tool players, right? So we got to have Aaron. We got to have Robinson.
Got to find a spot for my guy, the crime dog, Fred McGriff.
And Fred McGriff, right? So there you go. That's your 12, 13, your 15-man roster, and I put them against any team you ever made.
Yeah, that's a hell of a lineup. And I think all those guys are and we forgot Josh Gibson. We had Josh Gibson to that, and Turkey Stearns. All those guys are, if not in Cooperstown, they should be.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time. I was happy to see that Major League Baseball acknowledged the records that they hadn't for so long. So that was great. Because those guys didn't get an opportunity to play, and we know they could play. They were, some of the best ball players in the history of baseball. So, no,
Yep.
baseball's rolling good. It's exciting. I wish the major leagues were a little bit more exciting, but I think we kind of know that the teams right now that, assuming barring injury, which you never want to see injury, but we kind of have 3 or 4 teams from each league kind of penciled into making the Major League Baseball postseason, and that's what makes the college kind of World Series is interesting. It is now everyone is gonna, roll with the prohibitive favorite, which is, and certainly their record speaks as such, which is Tennessee. Tennessee has been dominant this year, and they've got the roster that says as much. But until Tennessee proves it by winning the College World Series, to me, I'd say it's still it's anybody's game when it comes down to when you show up in Omaha next Thursday. When the pressure's on.
Was it last year that the Tennessee fans were convinced that they were fixing to take it all, and they got knocked out pretty early?
Well, the last 2 years, as a matter of fact, yeah. I mean, you remember 2 years ago they lost in the Super Regional in Knoxville to Notre Dame in Game 3.
Yep.
Which sent Notre Dame to the College World Series for the first time for ever. And then last year they exited, I think, in the regional round after having a great season. So the pressure is definitely on Tony Vitello and the Vols to get it done. I mean, there's not a weak spot in that roster. I guess the weakest spot, I guess you could say, if it is a weakness, is maybe their bullpen. But as far as in the field with their hitters, I mean, Tennessee just crushes the ball all over the place. In fact, they have their number 3 hitter this year. You want to talk about being able to get the very best. Their number 3 hitter this year was a transfer from Clemson, who, Clemson's not a bad program, by the way. That's a good college baseball program. He left Clemson to go to Tennessee, if that tells you anything. That tells you how good Tony Vitello and that program is in Knoxville. And they've sold out just about every baseball game they played in Knoxville this year. So the Vol fans and faithful are kind of expecting, to raise the banner on a World Series championship, after the next 2 weeks in Omaha. But, as I always say, you got to, I'm like Missouri. I'm the show me. You got to show me first before I'll acknowledge it. And they got to get it done. But on paper, and I know games aren't played on paper, but that's a heck of a lineup Tony Vitello has there in Knoxville. That's a great team. I have them picked to win it all in Omaha, and I had them picked since probably early May. I haven't caught a number of their games, but there is a bit of pressure, because they've been so heralded and lauded amongst the numerous publications that write about college baseball. The team that I think that could throw a wrench in them, and I know they took care of them in SEC play, but I'm still not off the Texas A&M bandwagon. I think Texas A&M has a very good roster as well.
Hell yeah.
And of course, Bob's Kentucky Wildcats, though Tennessee did beat your Wildcats. So even though you guys split the SEC title, Tennessee did get you there.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I said a while ago is I didn't know if I had confidence in them to win it all, but I think that they've got as good a chance as anybody going into the Final 8 anyway.
That's always the key. It's just getting to Omaha, and then everyone starts with a clean slate, and anything can happen in Omaha, particularly depending on when your game time is. The ball travels a little better if you get a day game out there, if you're a home run hitting team versus, if you're more of a pitching and defensive based team, you want a night game because the ball doesn't quite travel as well. But I can't wait. I'm once we get these last 3 slots filled and get the final 8, the Elite 8, next week in Omaha, man, it's going to be great. It's going to be must-watch TV.
So the teams that can win 2 in a row and go straight to Omaha has got a little bit of an advantage because they can rest the pitchers a little even more, right?
Yeah, you want to get your 2 done, and then you can get extra rest on your arms, versus those teams that are going to have to play tomorrow. A third and deciding game, which we've only got one right now on the docket, which is NC State and Georgia in Athens, and talk about two games that really don't give you much to go off of. Both games were beatdowns by either team. NC State won the other night 18-1, I think, and then Georgia won today 11-2 or yesterday 11-2, whatever it was. I mean,
you don't know what you're going to get.
We don't know what we're going to get in that game, but I'm excited. I'm bummed that I'm going to be at work. I won't be able to watch it, but that's going to be a heck of a game to figure out who gets that spot. That spot in Omaha. Tomorrow in Athens at Foley Field. If I'm picking, I think I'm going to roll with Georgia. I think Georgia's going to get it done, but you never know with NC State.
Well, let me ask you something, Sean. So you just brought something to mind I never had to deal with while I was in the military. So I've got a cell phone, right? I go to the first formation after PT. Obviously, I want it off, right? Or not on my person or whatever. There's no way that my phone should go off during first formation. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, you don't want that even on your person.
Right. So, all right. So now I say I have to go PMCS my vehicle, right? Would I be able to have my phone on me at that time?
Sure, but it shouldn't affect your doing your duty.
Right. So let's just see me. I'm Staff Sergeant Arthur, and I'm the section chief, and I'm walking through the mode pool, and I see people put up their phones, and I decide that we should all have PT together until I sweat. Right? Would anybody have a problem with that?
Well, if you've already done PT, I just say you put the phones away in a locker, and you get down to whatever you need to get done. Once you're done, then you can get your phones.
So I was just curious if it still run like that because, as an NCO, and if I told people that I better not see them on their phone, right? Of course, a lot of people learn how to disappear and shit. I don't know how to you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I'd say that it's case dependent upon who you're with and where you're at and whatnot. But if there's work to be done, there's work that needs to be done.
Yeah. So I was just curious about what the policies was because I'm fascinated by that because I can see it, the whole gamut of things happening there. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, if you were a good, nice NCO and people wanted that, maybe you put it on the radio, but the priority is always work, work. And
that's right.
For me, I'm gonna DVR it on the TV, and when I get home tomorrow night, I'll watch it, and hopefully no one ruins it for me. And
I
text me about what happens, but I'm gonna watch NC State Georgia tomorrow night when I get home from work, and be excited to because you figure anyway this time of year there's not a lot on TV to watch, but I'm sure we've lost a few listeners tonight because of the NBA finals, which if they're enjoying the finals, then enjoy them. My team isn't in it, so I don't have a dog in the fight, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I don't love. I mean, I hate to see this because I love basketball, but I don't love the NBA finals the way I love the NCAA tournament. Really, my team has got to be in it, or there's got to be somebody that's so truly transcendent great that I can't help but watch them, right? But I mean, for me right now tonight, as a sports fan, I think the college basketball is more compelling to me. I mean, college baseball.
You mean college baseball? Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm in the same boat. I got what I wanted out of NBA, which I watched my Bulls, fail in the play-in game series because the Chicago Bulls just aren't very good. That's another story for another day. And then I saw the Lakers get eliminated, so I was happy. So that was that was the end of my NBA season right there, and that was back in April. So,
well, what do you think the future of LeBron is?
I have no idea. I mean, the best rumor I've heard is that he wants to play with his son, and we're going to see where he gets drafted this year. And so maybe he goes and plays with his son, which I think would be cool. I think I have I have no malice towards LeBron. There are a lot of people that have polarizing thoughts on LeBron James. I am not one of them. I think he's a great NBA player. He's won 4 championships, and he's got the all-time point scoring record. He's up there. He's in the top 10 all time. Hell, probably top 5.
He's unbelievable, man. I mean, the things he's done. Now, one thing that I find interesting is people always say there's no physical comparison to him, but him and Magic Johnson were the same size and did the same things.
Yeah, I think they're both incredible players. I was happy when he won the championship for Cleveland. That was a city starving for a title. Before LeBron and the Cavs won there a few years back, Cleveland hadn't seen a winner since Jim Brown and the Browns in 1964. I want to say so. I was all about that. I don't particularly like the Lakers, so I wasn't going to root for him when he joined the Lakers. Not because it's LeBron. I like LeBron, but I don't like. I root for teams, not players.
Right.
So, and I've never been a Laker fan. And so I'm, and they did get one. A lot of people yell about it being during, the bubble, but those games were played. So to me, it's legit. They won, in a bubble. But that's all we had at the time. There was a lot of other things that weren't even happening. So I was at least happy they did something. But if we're just purely talking championships, I think Bill Russell still has the record for most championships. So,
he's got 11.
He's got 11. So I don't think anybody's breaking that record. And then, if you want to have the argument between Jordan and LeBron, that anybody is certainly more than capable of having that argument. I'm not going to have it because I'm a purely biased source. So
yeah, me too.
So I am a Bulls fan and grew up.
Greatest and best. I think greatest and best are two different things.
And I mean, I would and you could say, well, maybe the talent wasn't as good, but you look at some of the numbers that Wilt Chamberlain put up. He averaged 50 points and 20 rebounds for a season. I mean,
it was unbelievable.
You'll never see that again.
No.
I think that it's hard, as Michael Jordan once said, it's incredibly difficult to compare eras in any sport, let alone basketball. And we could do that with college football. You talk about the great Saban teams of now with Alabama versus the different great teams of the different decades. Well, the game has changed on so many different facets. From Doug could probably talk about the great Alabama teams of Bear Bryant versus the great teams of Alabama with Nick Saban, and he would probably tell you it's two completely different games and players and time periods and rules and
people would want to string me up here in the state of Alabama.
I'm not. Well,
we're not going to. I mean, they really would.
I believe you, Doug, but so we're not going to do that. But I'm saying you understand that how different things are from the 1960s and 70s to how they are in 2000.
I think Bear Bryant was a great coach, but you put him in an era where he has to go through the top 4 teams, or just where he's got to play one of the top 2 teams to win the national championship. That's a whole different ballgame than what Bear Bryant did.
I just think it's not, and that speaks to my point of it's not fair to compare eras. If you were an Alabama fan and you think Bear Bryant is better than Nick Saban, that's you're certainly entitled to that. Or if you think Nick Saban is better than Bear, either way, they were both incredible coaches who did incredible things. So it's just not fair to compare because things change. I mean, heck, over the last 8 years since we've been doing the show, we have transfer portal, we have NIL, and now with the latest ruling with the courts that the schools can directly pay the players.
Yeah,
those 3 things were not reality for 90% of the history of college football.
Hell, they were scandal, actually.
Right, or you'd get in trouble for it. Right, you'd get in trouble for them. So, I mean, we're entering a new, different environment of college sports. Now, a lot of people are afraid and scared. They don't like it. And a lot of people don't like change. But the games are still going to be played. We're going to have fun. We're going to watch College Game Day. We're going to prognosticate about this team and that team. And we'll survive. We'll go forward, and people seem to forget the main thing is to have fun.
Yeah.
This is all supposed to be fun, like the tailgate is fun. Going into the stadiums. When we lose, of course, we're sad, but we're still going to enjoy the game, and we're going to watch them on TV and whatnot. And but we realize we're in a new era, and to me, just the word is be flexible. Flexible.
Guys, do you guys want to put off this Heisman thing till next week?
I think we should probably wait for Ed and Nikki. We need them. That way we can have a more.
Well, I don't have Nikki's votes. She never sent me her votes.
Yeah, so she's got to get hers in, and we need to have a more robust panel so we can have that discussion. Before I know, Doug, you're probably itching to get to bed. I know it's late your time, but we can't say we did see this week some bit of news come out. So we've got at least they've released the bowl schedule along with the college football playoff schedule. Did you gentlemen get a chance to take a gander at that?
I have not seen that.
Well, I'm particularly bent out of shape about one thing, Doug.
What's that?
There will be no double duty day opportunity, a.k.a. the Yellowhammer double slammer, because they put them on different days. So I can't go watch the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery at noon and then drive north after the game to Birmingham to see the Birmingham Bowl.
Oh.
They put them on different days. They put them on different, and also that Mobile has a bowl now. Did you see that?
You know what it is? They're tired of people sweeping in here, watching both games in one day, and not even happen to buy lodging, dude. That's what it is.
That's what it is. So now they got the bowl game that's in Mobile. I think it's the first week. Oh, and the other gripe that came up from the schedule coming out, not by me, by the way. I just don't shoot the messenger. I just, I report the news. I don't make the news. Is there was some grumblings about, Army Navy for the last 15, we'll call it 15 to 20 years. Forgive me on the exact date, listeners. But it's been the last standalone game of the regular season, right? It's that weekend after the conference championship games. The hullabaloo was about, there's going to be 2 bowl games on that same day. I think it's great. The more games, the better for the viewer. I get that we'd like to make Army, but if you watch Army Navy, it's not the most scintillating football you've ever watched. It's a lot of wishbone, a lot of running. It's great. We love Army Navy and what it represents and what it stands for. But I'm okay with it sharing the day with 2 of those minor bowls. I think one's the New Orleans Bowl, and I forget what the other one is. And then that leads into the Heisman that night. So I think it's good that we have.
Does it hurt the game?
No, I don't. No. I think people that want to watch Army Navy, that usually watch Army Navy.
Is it opposite? Is it at the exact same time as another game?
No. I think one finishes as Army Navy's kicking, and then I think one starts. Probably the third quarter of Army Navy, and then that one finishes, and we go right into the Heisman Trophy presentation.
So it's just a full day of football now.
Yeah, it's a normal full Saturday of college football, albeit 2 of them are bowl games. So and. Yeah, I mean, but people ask why do they keep showing these lesser bowl games? Well, I'll tell you why. They still outdraw for ESPN, because most of these bowl games are on ESPN. They still do better television numbers wise than the NBA and college basketball and the NHL.
Well, yeah, because I want to see
because I want to
wanna
watch
see-
football. And if that's a lesser tier bowl game with, I'm going to throw out a team, Louisiana Tech against Central Michigan, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
The Army-Navy game, with that game being the only game during the day, it's just kind of a reminder that this shit's winding down.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a downer.
Yeah. No,
and
I
this,
think
and this won't be.
this will kind of be the ramp up to the bowl season, and then the obviously I think we're all excited for the playoff, which
The 12-team playoff.
12-team playoff
Yeah.
is gonna, not that I dislike the 4-team. I was fine with the 4-team, but I just think the 12-team, the first round, the home team gets a game on campus. You know how nuts, like, for example, and I know, Doug, you want Alabama to win the SEC and get the first round, but I got it. But just for sake of argument, say they don't, but they're hosting, they're the 5 seed and they're hosting in Tus. You know how expensive those tickets
It's going
are
to be huge. It's going to be huge.
It'd be nuts. It'll be crazy. Yeah. It'll be it'll be New Year's before New Year's. You know what I mean? Like the festivities, the party atmosphere.
It'd be a season where we're used to not getting in, and then all of a sudden we're in, and if we win this game, then we're in.
Then you're you're going into the quarterfinals.
So it's just like it's definitely going to make a lot more money.
It's going to make a lot more money. More people are going to be tuned in. No one can gripe at this. Like, if you're griping that you didn't get in at this point, sorry, we're not hearing it. Like,
and this gives us all an opportunity to make fun of the fan base for the 13th team.
Right.
Oh yeah.
like, oh, we're 9-4 and we didn't get in and we're 13. Like,
that's what we tell everybody. Look, those last 2 teams, 11 and 12, that's a buffer zone. So.
Oh, people are going to hell about the double.
Fuck you if you're going to fucking talk about not getting in at 13th.
Right. Yeah.
There's some teams that have legitimate gripes over the years, but that 13th team, that's going to be laughable. In my opinion.
I agree with you. No, we should put out an official member. If you're 13 and you're no, there will be no Kleenex boxes and tears for number 13. You should have done better.
We should just do that for the Life Championship now. We won't even vote. We'll just give it to the 13th team.
That's what I think it should be. Yeah. I mean, because their fan base is going to be on social media trying to get everybody stirring the pot. But no, 13 historically through any era, whether it be the 4-team CFP, the BCS, the Bowl Alliance, and you go all the way back to just where the Bowls just showed up at a stadium and picked teams. No one was picking the 13th team. No one.
Everybody hates the number 13 too, so that's why they stopped at 12.
Yeah,
they're the live champions.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, if you're 13, you gotta wear it on the chin. Unfortunately, you're the life champion. That is what it is. Unless on those few years where Doug found a great end of season matchup where whoever wins isn't the life and whoever loses. Those few years where we had that, but. No, I can't wait for this fall. I can't wait for the CFP. And that's not even pertaining to my team. If we're life champions, if we don't get it done I'll certainly take my bitter medicine, and that's that. But more games is better for fans. And I think college football fans have been waiting, particularly the 3 of us who've lived through the men in the weird blazers just show up at a game and go, hey, you're going to the Sugar Bowl or you're going to and then we went through the Bowl Alliance, which that was okay, except for, the Rose Bowl wasn't participating. And so that was a problem. And then we finally got to the BCS where everyone was participating, but you go, what the hell are these computers doing? We've watched, 13 weeks of this. You got the wrong teams in the games, despite whatever the numbers the computer is saying. So we didn't really truly get to where we needed to be until the 4-team. The 4-team, I don't think anybody outside of Orlando, Florida can really complain about, the 4-team playoff.
I agree, 100%. The 12 is very compelling. We're going to love it.
12 I mean, the only thing that's challenging is, the schedule. And so far, having looked at the schedule, they've done a good job of, you hate to bring it up, but you have to, stay away from, the days where the NFL was playing, because the NFL is still king.
Yeah.
And regardless of if you're just a college football fan who says, that's silliness, I like college football better than the NFL. That's fine, and you're entitled to that. But the TV numbers and advertising dollars speak to a different story. The NFL is king as far as in the United States when it comes to viewership and dollars.
Oh yeah.
And so as long as you stay away from that, and can have kind of your own exclusive window, college football is going to be fine. It's going to be great. And the other thing we got to stay away from is having Georgia play TCU again. So we don't, we don't get that. But at least, hey, you can say what you want, but TCU earned their way there to get their tail kicked. But we hope we don't get that kind of a match. Hopefully we get, just an incredible matchup in the championship this first year. People go, wow, this college football playoff 12-team thing, man, wish we had been doing this for years, because this was just incredible. That should be the goal, Now, granted, the teams that get into that game are going to want to go, no, I hope we win 50-7, because you want your team to win. But for the rest of us that are just, the casual viewer, I want great games. I want, Alabama, Michigan from last year, albeit I wanted Alabama to win. That was a just absolutely nail biter of a game that was incredible from start to finish, other than the result. Because again, I wanted Alabama to win. I had money on Alabama to win. It didn't quite happen, but I can't say that I left that stadium as an upset viewer, because I got an overtime game that went down to the wire.
It was a hell of a game.
That was a great game. The Texas-Washington game was a great game. That's all you want as a fan. You want great viewing. You want great game. You don't want,
That was one of the funniest things that I've seen in the whole thing, is all the FSU fans that come out right after the Alabama-Michigan game and said, okay, this proves it. Alabama didn't deserve to be in there.
That's
and
insane.
I'm like, did you see the same game I did? Because
I don't think they did.
What I seen was probably the championship game.
Yeah.
Just came a little early.
No, that was the championship game. Absolutely.
So
Those two battled it out like just juggernauts.
I was surprised. Harbaugh definitely surprised me in this season in particular. I just got to the point where I didn't believe Harbaugh could do it.
Well, I not to take a little bit away from Michigan's shine, but I will, because, I don't care for Michigan. But one, you had the sign stealing scandal. Yeah, I know they took their little bit of punishment for it. But two, really the thing that I think was a bigger factor for Michigan getting to where they were, they didn't play anybody for the first 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And they had a very good roster. We'll give Harbaugh the credit. He built that roster in the image he wanted it built, which was, power, run, game, primary on offense. And that offensive line was massive and blocked out the sun.
Tell me this, Sean, and I know you'll know the answer to this. Who's the last team that played football in this fashion that won the national championship? You'd have to go back to early Saban teams, right?
Yeah, I would say the 2009 Saban team that beat Texas in the Rose Bowl played a very similar style to what Michigan played this past year.
But it had become a game, though, where you didn't believe that could happen anymore.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, you're 100% correct. I think a lot of people think that you cannot play that style of football anymore.
Me and Landon has argued it over and over throughout the years of the podcast to whether or not it can be done. Landon and I both argued about it, and I told him that power football can win, and I believe that defense and power football can win a national championship, but you had to be overwhelming. And Landon disagreed with that, but
we seen it. We definitely seen it last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it, and Now it took a few breaks in the Rose Bowl for Michigan to win. I'd like to have, and I think if you talk to him, I think if you talk to Jalen Milroe, honestly, off the record, he'd like to have that one play back where he was haphazardly carrying the football and he fumbled.
Yeah.
If that play doesn't happen, and they get positive yards out of that play, if they get a field goal on that drive, I think that ices the game for Alabama. I'd love to have that play back. That was right in front of me too. I was very upset, but and that's any national championship season. You kind of need some breaks to go your way.
Absolutely.
And
every team that wins one, you can definitely find those moments.
And I had another one for Michigan that year. For whatever reason, Michigan did win the championship game. Don't get me wrong, but for some reason, you just again, these are college kids. Michael Penix was just a little bit off in that game. He just wasn't quite as crisp as he was the week prior against Texas. Where he was hitting those receivers right on the the numbers in the hands, and and then the following week against Michigan, the passes were a little low. They were a little behind the receivers. Hell, that one that was an easy touchdown before halftime, he overthrew the kid by 8 yards.
I know that broke my heart, and I felt the same way because I felt that Texas's rush might even have been a little stronger than Michigan's was, right?
I think so, yeah. Now, the one thing that Michigan did better than Texas in that game, Michigan told Washington they were not going to run the football. Whereas in the Texas game, Washington was able to get some yards on the ground. Now, the Washington running back, whose name escapes me, he got a little dinged up in that Texas game. There was something, he wouldn't. You watched him run. You go, yeah, he something not right. But either way, had he been healthy, Michigan's defense was committed to saying, "You're not running the football on us. You're gonna have to pass to beat us." Okay, well, if Penix is Penix of the week prior against Texas, where that ball is right on the money, in the hands of his receivers as they're coming out of their breaks, Washington probably wins that game. But Penix was just, I mean, it's like a pitcher, in baseball. Some days, that curveball is snapping and it's hitting all the right spots. And then other days, the batters are teeing off because he's missing his spots and whatnot. And Penix just looked rushed in all of his throws for whatever reason. I don't know.
Did he feel a little bit more pressure, maybe? And
I think
when I say pressure, was Michigan getting a little bit of heat on him?
There was a little of that too, but I think also the pressure of the game. Like, Washington hadn't been in that spot in really since they split the national title in '91. So this was the kind of the rebirth of Washington football, and there's a lot of pressure on you to win the game. Whereas I think the pressure was off Michigan simply because we just won the Rose Bowl and beat Alabama.
Yep.
Like, anything after that is gravy. And so they could play a little bit more relaxed. Whereas, Washington, it's like, if we don't win this thing, was it really a great season? From where they've been. Yeah, to me it was. Absolutely. But I think a lot of the Washington fan base was like, okay, after beating Texas, we're going to win the national title. They had that. And in fact, I think if memory serves, the odds makers had it like that. Because you looked at Michigan and you go, they weren't they beat Alabama, sure, but it wasn't the sexiest win in the world, right?
Was Washington favored?
I think Washington was, if not a pick-em, I think they were. It wasn't like Michigan was a
prohibitive favorite.
They were prohibitive favorite where Michigan was just going to come and steamroll them, which they sort of ultimately did. But let's see what that line was again.
I don't remember. I think it was a close line, but
I can look it up.
I believe Michigan was favored close.
I think they were favored close, but I think that put a lot of pressure on Washington, and particularly Penn.
But I didn't hear anybody that
What
didn't
was
think
the
that
line
Washington
for
had a
Michigan
chance.
versus Washington in the national championship game? Here it was. They was favored by Michigan was favored by less than a touchdown. Match up.
Yeah, so I got Michigan was a four and a half. So that doesn't scream like we expect Michigan to just dominate.
No, I didn't know. I didn't hear anybody that didn't think that Washington had a chance. I mean, it was really kind of divided on. I mean, I heard a lot of people that thought Washington would win. A lot of people thought Michigan would win. It was that's the kind of mindset going in. I mean, nobody thought that either of these teams was running away with this.
And I think the difference in the game became the pressure that it was because Washington had lived and died via Michael Penix all year, and he pulled a few games out of the fire, if you recall. I think the game down in Southern Cal and maybe the game down at either Arizona or Arizona State, he had to pull out some miraculous plays for them to stay perfect, stay unbeaten, and win those games. And his QBR was 63, and he had 2 interceptions. He didn't throw for over 300 yards, and his average was 5 yards a pass. That's not how that team is built to win,
No, especially if you can't run the football.
And none of their big 3 receivers had a touchdown in that game. Rome Odunze, no touchdowns. Polk, no touchdowns. Dylan Johnson, no touchdown. Jalen McMillan, very good. He had one, but it was too little, too late. So I think they just they probably put a little too much pressure on themselves in the week run up to the game. Whereas I think Michigan was kind of playing with like house money, like, dude, we just beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl in overtime. Like, hey, whatever happens, happens. Like,
you had all the controversy of the season, and you just knew that was going to eventually affect his team, and it never did.
It just never did. I got to give Harbaugh credit for that. He was great at keeping the players focused on just the simple task at hand. Not listening to the media, not paying attention to any of the other extracurriculars, even his own of him leaving, potentially go to the NFL, which he did. But, I got to give him kudos. But, I mean, it's funny to think that as I look back, as we kind of do a moratorium for the 4-team college football playoff, I kind of feel like the first one and the last one were the best. Albeit in between there were certain games that were great, but like when you talk about semifinal plus the final, I think the first and the last are probably the best, and then in between, you had a lot of the great Clemson Alabama games when they'd match up, but the rest of the games in those playoffs were, usually Alabama beating somebody like a drum and Clemson beating somebody like a drum till they matched up or what have you. And then in the Georgia year, Georgia was very good. They beat Alabama the one year, but that was a shell of the Alabama team they played in the SEC championship game because of the injuries. So, I'm happy we're going to a 12 team. The 4-team I think was very good. It was a step, but the problem, we just didn't quite get as many great matchups. And the other issue we had in a lot of the matchups that, it's football. You have to deal with it. But just so many injuries that one team was clearly, you knew this team was going to win, the other team wasn't going to win, et cetera, so hopefully we don't see that as much in the 12 team, but I have a leering, sinking feeling that, we'll use Florida State as, last fall. Once their quarterback went down, that team was dead. They weren't the same team.
They were still a good defensive team, but
But they score 13 against Louisville after their quarterback. Like, we can't watch that. Well, going forward, here's the problem: they would be in a college, football playoff with 12 teams. Maybe they win one game at home in Doak Campbell because of that great defense. But next week they got to go say to Tuscaloosa or Austin, and you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah,
and I still tell the Florida State fans that team had an awesome opportunity to line up against Georgia and say, "Fuck, we deserve to be in this motherfucker," and they didn't. They just did. They didn't try.
I think it's more the culture. I think, and that starts from the top down. Once the players started hearing all the gripes from the administration and even their coach, Mike Norvell, the ones that could go to the NFL were like, yeah, forget this. I'm going, like, if we're going to have that. See, if they had the opposite attitude, like you're saying, Doug,
yep.
Let's forget it. We understand we got screwed in their mindset.
Well, that team they'll never have another opportunity at that.
No, they won't. But I agree with you. They should have battened down the hatches and said, okay, let's all of us show up for practice next week. Let's practice our ass off. Let's get ready for the Orange Bowl. And we can prove to somebody, all of us that were here that are able to play, nobody, enter the.
Believe it or not, they didn't even have to win the game if they would have just played a competitive game. People would have still said this team was worthy.
Absolutely, but to do what they did, that's a quitter's mindset. That's a quitter's attitude, and I feel bad. The only guys I feel bad for Florida State were those poor backups that had basically not played it down all year. That were
all them fuckers that went out there and played.
Yeah, that just got, curb stomped by Georgia.
Tossed around the field, yes. But anyway, guys, so I guess we'll do this this Heisman thing next week. And
then we need to start talking about another topic, to get us a little further. We're only, I think, 11 Saturdays away now from college football. So we're almost to single digits, gentlemen. We're almost to single digits.
Hallelujah.
But
we'll have to start breaking these conferences down.
Yeah, I think conference breakdown, and then maybe we could do our teams of the '80s since we did the '90s already, or we could do teams of the 2000s. Either one, we think about that.
Probably 2000s. That's probably a little closer to home and
most of our listenership.
Right.
Well, the '80s isn't. I mean, we at least know. I mean, Nikki maybe knows a little of the '80s, but I don't think the '80s right now to me is sort of the start and drop off point for most of our listeners. I don't think anything before 1980. As much as we might know about it, I think for the casual listener.
I was born in the 70s, and I do know a little bit about 70s football, but it's from books. It ain't from watching.
Books and YouTube, watching the old video, or talking to my dad and mom who went to a lot of those games in the 70s. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'd say 1980 is kind of a good starting point for modern, what we know as college football today.
If it means anything, guys, I watched both Archie Griffin and Jack Ramsey.
That's because you're old, Bob.
Hey, and here's my final thought.
Now, Bob, was that Archie Griffin at Ole Miss or Archie Griffin with the Saints?
I'm talking about Archie Griffin with Ohio State.
Oh, wow. I was thinking Archie Manning. Excuse me. Yeah. My apologies. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got quarterbacks on the brain tonight. But yeah, Archie Griffin. Yeah, with the back-to-back Heismans, and then he went to the Bengals, and he wasn't.
Ohio's right across the river, guys.
I forgot. Yeah. So he wasn't so good with the Bengals.
Oh no.
So we talked a lot about the playoffs and stuff tonight, and since we're talking about the '80s to finish this off, I want to throw this out there, and I really do believe that this game was instrumental in leading us to a playoff, and that was the Miami-Penn State 1987 Fiesta Bowl. That was a situation where you end up with two independents that do not have bowl tie-ins, end up 1-2, and they basically could ignore all the big conferences, and they put this game together. And after that, people said, we need to be seeing 1 versus 2 every goddamn year.
Yes.
I would
And
agree.
that took us there.
If you remember, NBC specifically, because they had the Fiesta Bowl that year, moved that game off of New Year's Day
To the
I
second.
think, to the second.
Yep.
And that was a Monday night, if memory serves.
And I'd never seen that happen before.
Right. That never happened before. And it was like, I remember the beginning of the broadcast, like we interrupt your normally scheduled Monday night, whatever TV show NBC had on Monday nights in 80s, and Bob Costas shows up and he goes, we have a very special presentation of the Fiesta Bowl. For the first time in however many years, a bowl game is able to schedule the number 1 team versus the number 2, and the viewership was just.
And we're talking about the Fiesta Bowl that had never come close to pulling anything like that.
Never come close.
Yeah.
But
they had to pony up, man. They had to get the fucking checkbooks out, didn't they?
Well, their title sponsor at the time was Sunkist, if you remember Sunkist.
Yes.
And Sunkist, wrote I think at the time it was like, which now is funny. I think they wrote a $10 million check, which now is like, what is $10 million? That's chump change. But yeah, they wrote a $10 million check, moved the game, and I think they had an absurd, like 37 million viewers, which, put that in perspective, I think Michigan and Washington only had 22 million viewers this past January for their game. And luckily, though, that game delivered. It went down to the wire. And
Miami turned the ball over 5 times. And
Miami kept turning the ball.
I was on the warpath. I really wanted Miami to win that game.
Oh, me too.
I was irritated as fuck with Penn State because they came to Tuscaloosa and just made Alabama look sick.
I think Penn State beat.
Actually, I think it was Birmingham, by the way. Sorry.
I think Penn State beat Notre Dame that year as well. That was Holtz's first year there in South Bend. But I think everyone kind of assumed Miami was going to win that game. I think also, was it that? I'm trying to remember. Was that Vinny Testaverde's Heisman year? Was that year?
It was the Heisman year.
Vinny won the Heisman that year, so they expected Vinny to be, the man in that game. And like you said, I think,
you know how it is. So you can question anything, but I say if Miami turns the ball over 3 times instead of 5 times.
Yeah,
Miami probably wins the game.
Yeah, you can't turn. What was it? 21-16 was the final score, I think.
14-10, I believe.
14-10. It was a 1-score game, and a touchdown win.
And Miami ended up on the 10-yard line at the end of the game, and and that's when Testaverde threw his final pick.
Shades of future NFL Vinny when he was with the Buccaneers and the New York Jets.
Now on Tecmo Super Bowl, Vinny Testaverde, when he threw a pass, it was like a punt, and it took forever to land.
Now Penn State did have some reputable defensive players, and first and foremost, one is Shane Conlon, who
it was a great Penn State defense.
I think Shane Conlon played in all 4 of the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl games. Unfortunately, they lost all of them, but
he was great tight end.
Getting to the Super Bowl 4 consecutive times is something we will probably never see for those of us who watch the NFL. That's regardless of whether you win or not. That is likely something we'll never see again in our lifetime. A team go to 4 straight Super Bowls. I don't care that they lost. I mean, I get it. You can rag on them all you want, but just getting to the Super Bowl in today's NFL is absolutely hellacious.
Jim Kelly was hell, man. He was tough.
Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, and James Lofton, Cornelius Bennett, Daryl Talley,
Bruce Smith,
Ron Darby. Yeah, I mean, the fact that those guys, gave up more money, they could have went other places, but bought in and stayed in Buffalo. That's a tough place to stay, by the way. Other than the fans, obviously there are some of the best fans in the NFL, but the living conditions in Buffalo. I mean, you get 20 feet of snow a year. It's cold. They play outdoors, But those teams were tough. The problem was, other than the first Super Bowl, which they lost because their kicker missed a 42-yard field goal, just pushed it a little to the right, which that one they should have won. The other three, they were so outclassed. They run in the next year to the Washington Redskins and Mark Rippon and Joe Gibbs had built just a machine where that team, I think for a number of years, had held the record of most points scored in a single season. And then you run into Jimmy Johnson's, dynasty Cowboys the next 2 years. It's a shame for Buffalo, and their fans. You'd like to have seen them get at least one. But God damn, they were tenacious. They if you don't want us to go to the Super Bowl, then beat us.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Houston Oilers tried with Warren Moon. They failed. The Joe Montana Kansas City Chiefs failed. The Bengals failed. The Steelers failed. They beat that living daylights out of my Raiders in the AFC Championship game, 51-3. So I don't begrudge them anything. I just do feel bad for the Bills fans that are old enough, that have loved them that long.
Imagine going to the Super Bowl 4 straight times becoming a negative.
Yeah,
and it kind of has. And it's not a negative, like you said. It's unbelievable to make it to that game 4 straight years.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm trying to remember. I don't think a team, even the teams that have won, have gone to 3 straight. I'm thinking of the back-to-backs, and none of them have even made it to a third one to even lose.
Right.
The 60s, the Packers won back-to-back. They didn't go a third time. The 70s Steelers, I think, went once back-to-back, but they didn't go a third time.
I think they did 2. I think they did 2 back-to-backs.
They did 2 back-to-back, but then there was a break.
But there was a break in the middle of that. I think it was maybe 2 seasons.
Same with the Dolphins that won back-to-back. They didn't make it to the third one. Who else? The Niners in the 80s, they went back-to-back, almost got to a third one, but the Giants stopped them in the NFC Championship
Now,
game.
the Minnesota Vikings had kind of a Buffalo-esque.
They went to 4 in the 70s, but they weren't all.
They weren't consecutive. No.
Right. Yeah. And then the Patriots dynasty of the 2000s, they didn't go to a third one. They went back to back, and then they lost to the Colts. Same with the 90s. The back-to-back Broncos didn't go to a third one because Elway retired after the second one. And that's been it. And the Chiefs, the Chiefs got a chance this year. This is an opportunity for a team to potentially three-peat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So.
All right, guys, be thinking about those Heismans.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great discussion. I can't wait till we get Ed and Nikki back on, and we're going to talk some Heismans, and it's going to be great. And Bob, good luck to your Wildcats. They're up as I speak. They're doing good.
Hallelujah! I'm going to go ahead and check it out.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, talk to you next Sunday.
You guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Later.
Laters.
Thank you for supporting Smacking Off the podcast on the X's and O's network. Be sure to keep up with our scheduled live casts and other presentations on Facebook at Smackologists or at Smacking Off, and on our YouTube channel at Smacking Off the Podcast.